You probably all know the famous quote, "Computers help me solve the problems I've never had without them." And once again, this has become true during the last years because voting seemed to be so easy, especially for us. And then the computers came in, and the NeDAP chess computer showed us that it's that it looks fairly easy, but it obviously isn't, and there are lots of problems behind that. And Ulrich Wiesner will talk today about solutions, and as far as I read, about the problems that comes with these solutions. And if that irritates you or confuses you at the moment, I hope he'll clarify things up for us. Thanks again, with a warm welcome for Ulrich.
Yeah, thank you very much. This talk is about attempts to implement secure and auditable and transparent e-voting systems using cryptography. So that's next generation e-voting after NeDAP and Digital Pen, probably. And this talk is going to be from a voter's perspective. I'm not an expert in cryptography. And if you are, so please be patient with me. This talk is going to be structured like I'm going to repeat a little bit why is e-voting an issue, why is it so difficult to implement an e-voting system that is acceptable for democratic elections, and what issues do we introduce if we just keep physical copies of the ballots, like introducing a paper trail. Now recently there have been a number of cryptographic solutions suggested, like 3 ballots, punch, scan, bingo voting and others, and I'm going to, on a high level, touch upon each of those and explain what they do and what the concepts, underlying concepts are, and I'm going to discuss whether I think that fixes the issues from a voter's perspective. What's the motivation for that talk? There seems to be a strong community believing that the e-voting issues that we've seen in the past, like with the NeDAP chess computers, are just because the previous approaches haven't been implemented properly, and that the issues are fixable if we just do it properly. In Germany also, there has been an IT security award this year for a concept called bingo voting, which created quite some media attention. And there just seem to be a number of people who think it's now fixed, let's implement bingo voting and we are done. But I believe it's not that easy. Before I start, I'd like to say thank you. I've been here 2 years ago to talk about the case I filed or wanted to file with the Constitutional Court here in Germany, and to do that I needed 100 signatures from voters, and just here after this session I got something like 80 signatures, but some of you didn't stop collecting, and I got mails with hundreds of signatures, and in the end we had something like 850 signatures. So thank you very much for this. Now, why do we have to deal with e-voting at all? What's the relevance of this topic? Voting computers have been used in polling stations in a number of European countries. In the Netherlands, there was an almost 100% coverage, and that has been discontinued, thanks to Rob. Ireland bought NeDAP devices for 100% of the polling stations, but decided to never use them. Belgium, I believe, has had 40% coverage, and I think it has been discontinued because the license to use it ran out. but I'm not entirely sure where this is going. France has a 5% coverage, growing. Germany has a 5% coverage. It's with the Federal Constitutional Court now. We had a hearing in October, and we're expecting a decision from the court whether the authorities are going to be allowed to use that in future during the next weeks, not weeks. Voting via the internet is a topic in other countries. In Estonia since 2006, and they're now even looking to vote via mobile phone. In Switzerland, some cantons have used internet voting, and there are discussions and trials in various countries, including the United Kingdom, Austria, Norway, Russia. And now sometimes people say, no, we're discontinuing that, like we had such statements in the UK and in Austria. But I don't think it's completely off the table as long as there's still a sufficient community promoting it. Why is e-voting an issue at all? Well, the democratic election principles are that an election should be verifiable, transparent, secret, and that's all procedural principles that ensure that elections are free, fair, and general. So the values that should be protected are free, fair, and general, and how we achieve that by making them verifiable, transparent, and secret. Now, what is this about? The secrecy of the vote basically ensures the free election. It allows you to choose what your preference is without experiencing any negative personal consequences, and you can't sell your vote. The auditability is a measure of quality assurance. It should ensure that the election result is fair and honest. The audits are typically conducted by the authorities like recounts, and therefore it can never replace transparency, because you can't just say, hey, let me audit the votes. That's nothing that somebody will allow to you as a voter. And transparency is really the value that's open to voters. It ensures that the election is conducted according to the regulations and principles, and that everybody can verify that. It creates trust. It creates trust in the results, and hence ensures that people believe in the legitimacy of the elected body. It prevents denunciation of the result, so nobody can come and say, yeah, but I don't believe this result is correct, because then you would have to have tampering in front of the public. And transparency can never be delegated to the authorities, because it's taking away this right of everybody to understand that the election is free and fair. If you think, I've never seen that transparency, and I've never attended a poll in an election office, and I've never been participating in an account, well, all the OSCE member states have committed to transparent elections in the Copenhagen Declaration 1990, and there's different ways that has been implemented in different countries. For example, in Germany, anybody can observe elections and counting. So you don't even have to be a citizen, you don't have to be older than 18, you don't have to be registered with any authorities, you don't have to bring your passport, it's just open to everybody, and it's just restricted by means of safety and public order in the polling places. In Austria, for example, it's not a right for everybody to participate, but the parties participating in the election can nominate election witnesses, which then go to the polling station and witness the election on behalf of the parties. And similar concepts are implemented in the UK, for example. The participating parties can nominate election witnesses, and organizations or individuals can register for observation. Now, what is the issue with e-voting? In a paper-based election, you basically have a white box. The ballot box is a passive device. It doesn't do anything to the votes you put in. It doesn't do any processing, so the input will be the output. And if you then witness the counting of the votes, and if you can witness that nobody tampers with the ballot box during the election process, then you can assume that the result will be just dependent on the input and on nothing else. Now, when you switch to e-voting and you have a black box device from a voter's perspective, which collects the votes and stores the votes and counts them afterwards, the thing is you have a secret input because the secrecy of the votes. You have a secret input and you have a secret processing, and there's no way you can audit the result. And that's a fundamental difference from other applications, IT applications you might want to trust, like a cash machine. With a cash machine, you can always see what the input is, the amount you want to withdraw, what the transactions on your account are, and you don't need to know how the cash machine works to check the result. And that's different with elections because the input, the votes are secret. So the processing is not available, the input is not available. How can I check the output? And it's obvious that if you want to check the output, you have to have a little look at the input. And you have to lift the secrecy by a trusted entity who looks at the input and then ensures that the input and the output are related properly. Why do people want to use e-voting? There's a number of inappropriate reasons which are nevertheless repeated by authorities again and again. One is because they say it's cheaper. That's a questionable statement, but even if it was, that wouldn't be a reason to tamper with the transparency of an election. They also say because we've already spent the money on the equipment. That was actually one argument that they even presented in front of the Constitutional Court. Or because it saves in 1 hour of counting. There's some better reasons which are at least worth discussion. You could implement more complex voting systems, like cumulative voting, where you have multiple votes per voter. And in Germany, for example, we have elections in some areas in southern Germany where people have 50 votes and more. Basically 1 vote per member in the city council you elect. Hamburg and Brandenburg, for example, have 3 to 5 votes per voter. But you can still distribute on multiple candidates, or you can accumulate on one candidate. In other countries, there are preferential election systems, like single transferable vote, or systems where you basically state if candidate A is not successful, then my preference is candidate B. Now, all these voting systems have the feature that counting is then very high effort, and it's probably then prohibitive to use manual counting in these situations. So you have a trade-off between the transparency issues and the benefits of these voting systems. Now, my personal preference here clearly is on preference, because what helps what does a complex sophisticated voting system help if you can't check that the results are correct? But at least that's something that drives the introduction of e-voting. Actually, specifically in Germany, the communities in these noted areas are desperate for